Alright, hey guys, this is April 6th, Monday for biology. So what we're going to do today is start chapter 20. And so it's going to be reading page 405, 406 through 411. And so go ahead and read that. So 406, 405 through 411. So you can pause right here and I'll come back and clean it up. Alright, so on page 405, we'll actually get started on the pre-section stuff. So it says on the top of page 405, you have invertebrates. These are the largest and most diverse group of animals, and these are animals without backbones. So an animal without a backbone is an invertebrate. The next definition there is anthropods. An anthropod is an invertebrate with jointed appendages, and they make up more than 3/4 of all species in the animal kingdom and include such familiar creatures as insects, spiders, crayfish, centipedes, and millipedes. And so the important thing there is invertebrates have jointed appendages, and they make up more than 3/4 of all the species in the animal kingdom. On the right side of page 405 there, you have the phylum Arthropoda, includes such diverse creatures as butterflies, ants, shrimps, and horseshoe crabs. Yet these are very different creatures that have certain features in common. In place of an internal backbone like the vertebrates, anthropods have a strong, lightweight, and flexible exoskeleton. The exoskeleton of an anthropod is composed of chitin, which is a substance that is chemically similar to cellulose or starch. When reinforced by special proteins or by hard minerals, chitin can be as strong as bone. And so it also continues there, the exoskeleton is perhaps an anthropod's most striking feature, and it provides the animal with several advantages: protection, strength, support, lightness, and locomotion. And so all anthropods have jointed legs, as their name implies. And so that'll take us through page 405 with the highlights there. Page 406, you talk about some insects there at the bottom of the page. It says, insects, the most varied and numerous of all God's living creations, make up more than 70% of all animal species. And so it's important there, 70% of all animal species are insects. It says, entomologists have identified about 1 million species of insects and estimate that many more exist. Yet all of these tremendously varied and numerous creatures have certain common characteristics. All insects have an exoskeleton that is divided into 3 distinct body regions: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. All insects have a single pair of antennae, and as adults, all insects have both compound eyes and simple eyes and breathe through breathing tubes called the trachea. All insects have 3 pairs of jointed legs, and most insects have 1 or 2 pairs of wings. And so that'll give you basically the things that insects have in common. On the right-hand side of page 406, it gives you the life cycle of insects. Most insects do not live for a long time. Generally, their lifespans are months, weeks, or even days. Relatively few lifespans stretch over years. So, although a few insect species are viviparous or ovoviviparous, most insects begin life as an egg. In some wingless insects, such as silverfish and springtail stones, insect that hatched from the egg is miniature replica of its parents. Most insects, however, undergo a series of changes in form as each hatches from an egg and develops into an adult. The wonderful process by which insects mature is called metamorphosis, by either incomplete or complete. So on page 407, it talks about incomplete metamorphosis, which is where the insect begins life as an egg that hatches into a nymph, an immature form of the insect that looks much like the adult but has different body proportions and lacks wings. About 11 of more than 25 orders undergo incomplete metamorphosis exclusively, including such common insects as dragonflies, mayflies, crickets, etc. During incomplete metamorphosis, the nymph molts its outgrown exoskeleton several times and secretes a new one. Complete metamorphosis is where the eggs develop into a larva, which is a worm-like eating and growing stage. The larvae of various insects are known by many common names: grubs, which is for beetles; maggots, which is for flies; wigglers, which is for mosquitoes; and caterpillars, which is butterflies and moths. Insects larvae have a nearly insatiable appetite, devouring everything in sight, and they often cause great damage to trees and crops. So it goes through and kind of gives you a couple examples there of those. Continuing on page 408. Page 408, we get to the grasshopper and the grasshopper's exoskeleton. It says, like all insects, the grasshopper's exoskeleton is divided into 3 distinct body regions: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. The head is the front segment of the grasshopper's body, and it is attached to the grasshopper's head is a pair of antennae or feelers, which give the grasshopper an excellent sense of smell, touch, and taste. Each antennae is extremely flexible because of its jointed design. The grasshopper has 3 simple eyes, 2 by the antennae and 1 between, which can detect only light and shadow. Located on either side of its head are 2 larger compound eyes that are sensitive to shape, color, and movement. And so they give you the example of the grasshopper there at the top of page 408, as well as a couple other insects, and so that would be extremely valuable to you just to identify where they are in relation to each other. It says a grasshopper's mouth is specially designed for its diet of plants and plant animals. Grasshoppers, especially locusts, which are types of grasshoppers, have been infamous throughout man's history, and they create great damage due to crops. You can read these descriptions of locusts in Exodus and Joel. And the components of an insect's mouth are mouth parts. The specially designed chewing mouth parts of a grasshopper's mouth are the labrum and the labium, which form the upper and lower lips, and the mandibles and the maxillae, which form the jaws. The labrum and labium are flattened structures that guide food to the insect's jaws and help to hold it there. And continuing on, it says the main serrated jaws or mandibles are horizontally opposed and function to cut and grind the grasshopper's meal. And then the maxillary or secondary jaws that work with the mandibles to hold and chew the food. Alright, your definition for a thorax there on page 409. It says the middle part of the grasshopper's body is the thorax. It is divided into 3 segments: the prothorax, the mesothorax, and the metathorax. The first section, the prothorax, lies just behind the head. The grasshopper's front pair of legs are attached to this segment. The middle part of legs and the front pair of wings are attached to the mesothorax, and the rear pair of legs and rear wings are connected to the metathorax. And again, you can kind of see that on the illustrations. Down towards the bottom left-hand side, it says stimuli received by the grasshopper's sense organs are relayed by nerves and nerve centers called ganglia to the proper muscles for a coordinated response. Even with an invertebrate as small and insignificant as a grasshopper, the muscular and nervous systems are incredible complexity and design. In fact, grasshoppers have more different muscles than even humans do. So there, I'll take you through that. The abdomen on the right-hand side of page 409 tells you it is the rearmost portion of the grasshopper's body, and it contains many of the insect's vital organs, including the heart, much of the digestive system, and most of the respiratory and excretory system. The abdomen is divided into 11 segments. 8 of these segments contain minute respiratory openings called spiracles. Each segment has a pair of spiracles, and there are 2 additional pairs in the thorax. The spiracles are surrounded by delicate hairs that keep out foreign particles but allow for an efficient exchange of oxygen in the insect's air tubes or trachea. And so that's important. Down at the bottom of page 409, it says a single eardrum called a tympanum is located on each side of the first abdominal segment next to the thorax, and it is a thin oval-shaped membrane that vibrates much like a drum head when struck by sound waves. On page 410, you have digestion and absorption. A grasshopper's digestive system is similar in function to that of most other animals. A grasshopper must first chew its food with its mandibles and then pass the food into its esophagus, where the food is moistened by salivary glands. The softened food is then swallowed and travels to the crop, which is a temporary storage area, before being passed along into the gizzard. Inside the gizzard, the food is further broken down by grinding before passing to the stomach. And then the stomach continues the process of the digestion the help of special enzymes produced by glands called gastric cilia. And so the intestine of a grasshopper is composed solely of the colon and rectum, which store undigested material until it can be eliminated through the anus. And so that'll take you through the digestion process. The next section is on circulation and excretion. And essentially, the important part is dealing with the aorta. It says the heart contracts the blood traveling forward into the aorta, which extends into the insect's head. Insects do not have a closed system of blood vessels like mammals and humans. Instead, the insect's blood exits the aorta at the front of the insect's body and flows rearward through the open body cavity and around the vital organs supplying them with nutrients. Then the blood re-enters the heart through tiny openings called ostia along with the sides. These openings have minute valves that permit blood to enter the heart and not escape. And so again, the figure on page 410 there to kind of show you that diagram of how the blood circulates through the grasshopper. The next section is on reproduction and life cycle. The reproduction organs of the male and female insects are located in their abdomens. Female grasshoppers have 2 ovaries in which eggs develop. An oviduct carries the eggs away from each ovary, and the 2 oviducts unite to form a single tube that opens near the tip of the female's abdomen. Male grasshoppers have a pair of testes that produce sperm. As in the female, special tubes carry the sperm from the testes and unite to form a single tube that extends to the outside of the abdomen. When the insects mate, the female stores the male sperm in her seminal receptacle, a specialized container where the sperm remain until the female is ready to lay her eggs. The female grasshopper prepares to lay her eggs by digging a hole in the soil. And so that'll take us to the last page here on page 411. And basically just demonstrates the cycle of how the grasshoppers mate. It says every fall, each female grasshopper lays several dozen eggs in the ground, and the grasshopper nymphs have to form eggs in the spring. And because they undergo incomplete metamorphosis, the immature nymphs look like miniatures of their parents. And so that is the process by which you get adult grasshoppers. They go through the nymph stage. So that'll take us through that section. So what I need you to do today is answer on page 411, do questions 1 through 7. 1 through 7 on page 411, and you will have a quiz tomorrow. So if you have any questions over anything on this section, get with me.